This video was recorded in front of a live virtual audience. Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. I'm so excited because you know how much we love Chanel here in the Fashion Bunker. But we also always give it the proper, listen, when it has to be criticized, it's criticized. When not. But I'm so excited to review together with you the Spring-Summer 2022 fashion show, right? Oh, new merch, by the way. Check it out. I'm wearing the FOMO, Fear of Missing Out Halloween edition. Link is in the description box down below, but you can get yours limited only until the 31st of October. Available on Amazon and on www.superdacob.com. Get your spook on with a stylish fabulosity that we know in the Fashion Bunker. So, Chanel Spring-Summer 2022. There's a lot to say about it. We're going to watch it together, but before we get to it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. You can also push the join button next to the subscription button and become a member today, gain access to extra perks. You can also join me on Patreon. Thank you to all you members and patrons who have already pledged. Without you, the Fashion Bunker wouldn't be here. I live stream every Saturday, so this video is being filmed live as we're filming right now. All of y'all are welcome to join me every Saturday for the live streams, and thank you to all my co-chatters and co-reviewers who are in the chats right now. We are going to review this show together. Now, Chanel, this is a very particular show. This show is a little bit complicated in many ways. We remember these shows from the 80s and the 90s. Chanel. Karl arrived in 1983. Then the evolution began. The brand started, pumping new life into its own self, becoming more and more popular, growing more and more and more. So by the time the 2000s and the 2010s hit, Chanel fashion shows had by then expanded exponentially to these colossal depictions of fashion. Every fashion show was like a Hollywood multi-million budget production type of thing happening in the Grand Palais or in other places, because Chanel started expanding their collections from 2 to 4 to 7 to 8 to 9. Now they have like 10 collections with capsule collections a year. So there's shows for most of these collections. Sometimes they traveled to other countries when they did the Paris meets another city worldwide for their cruise collections, for their métier d'art collections. Chanel grew exponentially to a point where, well, once Karl, was no longer with us and Virginie took over, it was kind of, and before the lockdown, it was already clear that it wouldn't be sustainable anymore. Chanel is still acting like there's no issues and no problems. Chanel is still going like, yeah, we're fabulous. We're still selling bags. I'm like, yeah, you're risking to become like Hermes. You got those 2 bags everybody wants to buy, and then people don't want anything else. Chanel thinks that's not going to happen, but it might. Chanel might just end up with their own Birkin and Kelly, and that's it. Why? Well, because Karl is not there anymore, and Virginie is a hit or miss, depending on how the collection is. But back to the sizing of the fashion shows, right? We remember the historic fashion shows towards the latter part of the lifespan of Karl Lagerfeld at Chanel. They were humongous. Now Chanel is telling us, hey, we're going back to the roots, nostalgic factor. We're going back to the 80s fashion shows and the 90s fashion shows. Tight catwalks, surrounded by photographers all around, everything very intimate because we want the nostalgia. I'm like, I see through this. Nostalgia? Looks more like you're really cutting your budgets, but cutting them drastically. Now, I'm all for nostalgia. I love those fashion shows. They felt so intimate, smaller, tighter venues. The models back in the 80s and 90s were giving you, they were told to walk the runway with character, charisma, to smile, to flirt with the camera people, with the audience, to show character. With time, from the late 90s onwards, all of this kind of just stopped, and models became this kind of cold facade. They were supposed to be almost without an identity. We still have a couple of models that today that are famous, right, new and up and coming, but most of them are just invisible. And this is also because the brands want to pay them less. You know, you don't want to have supermodels that are super expensive. The brand wants to save money too, right? But a lot of factors that contributed into models kind of becoming more dried out, not showing any character. So now, anyway, now all of a sudden, all of these models are asked again on this reduced catwalk that costs less to make. That's the bottom line, because these brands want to save money. We are in this post, or still within the lockdown situation, where a lot of them are going through trouble economically, even though they don't want to admit it. So they're using the nostalgia factor to downsize the fashion show, but we see through that. And then they're telling the models, hey, to compensate for this kind of miniaturizing everything, give us character again. But these models, obviously, a lot of them don't know how to do that because they were not ever asked to do that in the past. Now all of a sudden they have to do it. Hold on, my light just turned. So we have this situation where the models are kind of asked to deliver. That's a bit ditzy. This is the premise, okay? Now we're going to see the result. We're going to watch the fashion show together, and we're going to see, did Virginie deliver in terms of clothing? Is this nostalgia factor really worth it? Is Chanel onto something? Do we buy it? Do we buy this concept that they really want to be nostalgic about it? Or do we really think that, oh, they didn't really why? Because, listen, bottom line, why do something again if it was already so perfect the first time around? And it was perfect the first time around in the 80s and the 90s. It was perfection. It was just so beautiful to see. I love watching the old videos, the grainy 4:3 format videos on YouTube of the old, you know, vintage 80s, 90s Chanel fashion shows. Because they're just amazing. They just are. Oh, fruit fly. Got a bunch of bananas today. Anyway, we're going to catch it, as we always do. So, why redo it? Karl Lagerfeld said very clearly in an interview towards the end of his life, he said, you know, people keep asking me about Chanel, the evolution of Chanel, the clothing of Chanel, how I envision the future of Chanel. He said, you know, nowadays, most other brands look more like Chanel than Chanel does. Because I have evolved. I never look back. I never redo something. I always keep making something new. So the Chanel has gone to a place where the iconic silhouettes of Chanel that you still have in your minds, either from Coco's time from the 60s or from the iconic Lagerfeld era of the 80s, he's like, that's gone. I don't redo stuff. I keep evolving. But now Virginie's kind of bringing us back. She's doing something that he never wanted to do. And with good reason, because that's what made Chanel so iconic, is the fact that it was never repeating itself. That's why we crave the 80s and 90s Chanel. That's why it costs so much to purchase those pieces now vintage, because Karl never wanted to give them to us again. You know, it was that was then. Now we're going somewhere else. And so what is happening here? You know, why do we have to redo something that was already perfect back then? And if we are redoing it with the sensitivity of 2021/2022, is that sensitivity the right sensitivity to play with nostalgia when it comes to Chanel? Is that the right thing? I've been blabbering on. Let's watch the show and let's see if we find an answer to all of these questions together. The video is taken from the Chanel YouTube channel, so it falls under fair use because we are reviewing it. I'm just letting you know that I changed the music. It's not the copyright music that they used. I'm using copyright-free music for this depiction. Now, we got these models kind of, you see already they told him to flirt with the camera a little bit, but the models can't do it. They're still super cold. You see, they're still like dead faces, right? But anyway, so they're there doing what they're doing, touching each other up, but everything is very like energyless, and it's so depressing to see. And there's Virginie Viala kind of working the, I don't know, this is like behind the scenes. What, they're dressing each other up and they're getting ready to go on the runway. Okay, I'm like, the sunglasses have a little bit of an 80s flair, but they could have, this is not 80s. This should have been higher. I still love those sunglasses, by the way. We'll try to hunt them down, you best believe, because I do collectional sunglasses, but they're not like the best sunglasses Chanel ever made. Far from it, just to be very clear. It's just that they have thick temples on the sides. There's a black on black, black on white, and we're gonna see a dark blue, purple, and magenta as well. Here's black on black. So we got this runway, which reminds us of the 80s and 90s runways, and we're starting, interestingly, all first looks we have is summer wear, beach wear, also very much Carl from the 80s and 90s. Except the logo has been minimized. We got the tiny double C instead of the big one. And it does remind us, it does have that flavor of early 90s Chanel. But it's not as good. This is my problem. Visually, this does not give me what it used to be. Because I'm looking at this and I'm not craving this. I'm looking at this and all I'm thinking is, oh man, the 90s were better. Oh man, the 90s were great. Oh man, I wish they designed the 90s pieces again. Instead of, you know, if you're gonna do something like this, how are you gonna make it better? And if you can't make it better, then let it go. Girl, let it go. Do something else. Don't try to go into this direction if you can't make something better. But how can you make something better that was already perfect back then? So the models are told to have a little bit of character. She's smiling. She's kind of giving us a little moment there, a little, you know, with the hair. But most of them kind of fail epically in the endeavor. You know, most of them keep this kind of emotionless walk. She's trying to flirt with the camera a bit more, but it's kind of a classic pose we're used to. So it's not. So here we have these. Is this leather or pleather? I do not know. Probably leather. A bit of opulence, Byzantine opulence here with the skirt and jacket, and then we have this kind of tricot underneath it. Here's the version without the jacket as well. This is more kind of Carl late 90s, but there is some opulence there. But it seems like it's toned down when compared to what it used to be in the 80s and 90s. Now, another thing that has changed are the cameras and the technology. We are filming in 4K, in HD, in 8K. There's even 16, 18K in some cases. So, you know, when we watch the nostalgic videos from the 80s and 90s, the 4:3 format, they're also grainier and there's a distance in them, right? When we see, if they were filmed in HD like these are now, it would be a different vibe. I agree. I'm talking to myself. I'm agreeing with myself. But also the fact that this video is shot in this ultra high res definition, 4K. I don't know how high they shot it. It does also make it more cold, you know? It distances you as a viewer from the collection, because you're used to seeing the 80s and 90s runways with the grainier video, VHS material. And now all of a sudden we got this HD that makes you almost feel like you're there. And it does kill off the zhuzh, the vibe. It does make it feel colder automatically because it is high def. Now, there are ways to combat that. You can use certain filters. You can make things softer. They did not do that. That's a choice. It's an aesthetical choice. The leathers of the bags, in some cases, look supple and some not. This is the first time I see an actual cut tailored to look 80s, because they announced this show as this return to the nostalgic 80s Chanel runway catwalks. That's an 80s cut, okay? The other pieces were more 90s, but that jacket, that shoulder was 80s. And I'm thinking to myself, when I saw that piece the first time, here's the heart bag that everybody's saying is gonna be the next it bag. I'm like, really? We've seen heart bags from every brand since decades. Vivienne Westwood being the first one to launch it in the 90s big time. This heart bag is tremendous, really, really ugly. And of course, already people are sending me photos of close-ups of that bag. The stitching is off. The panels are not stitched correctly. That heart bag is a mess. I would never buy it. but to each their own. So I thought when I saw the shoulder pads, oh, we're gonna see this 80s silhouettes, but then the more the silhouettes keep popping, and the less 80s they look. There's a bit of 60s there's a bit of 70s. You're gonna see further down the line. The cardigan, this could be a little bit maybe 80s. I was thinking about this knit black cardigan with the 4 pockets, and I thought maybe I could pre-order that. But then the cuffs on the wrists, the puffiness here, very, very feminine. It would never really fit me. And I thought to myself, Carl made a little bit more androgynous. He made very feminine pieces, but some of them he made them androgynous also because he knew some guys might want to purchase too. Why not let them? Virginie's like doesn't care. She's like, no, I don't want any man to purchase anything from, it's a female collection. It's only for women. It only has to have these very girly silhouettes, which, yeah. Is it, does it make it modern? I don't think so. Not really. It kind of actually ages it rather than making it more modern. So I still haven't seen a single piece on this catwalk that tells me 2022, the evolution of Chanel. We have evolved. We're seeing something new. I'm kind of seeing, actually what I'm seeing is Virginie trying to homage 80s and 90s Carl by watering it down. That's not good. That's never a good sign. If you can't bring stuff out, the little Rubik's Cube bag, we've seen that, where have we seen that before in my channel as well? The hair is 80s, but that's about it. This is more 60s. The shoes with the heel opening up, I love those, but I love the original version from the 90s that Carl did, Why redo them and make them worse than they were before? The problem is we're not living in the 80s anymore. So the certain type of opulence and decadence that was so majestic and gorgeous for the 80s, it just doesn't exist anymore. People are tired. People are coming out of a lockdown. People are struggling in a much different way than they were in the 80s. We got also social media now. Technology has evolved. So to bring back something like this without having the zhuzh, the energy, the flow that people had in the 80s, it makes no sense. It makes no sense because that joy for life, also that certain type of naivete that was typical for the 80s is gone. It's gone. We are more corrupted now than we were back then. So all of this, those are the sunglasses I was talking about, the magenta, kind of Bordeaux magenta temples with the blue. Gonna try to hunt those down if they go in production. They probably will. These colorways, they're sad, they're dap. This is not a light summery vibe. This is autumn. This is kind of like the end of something. It doesn't tell me, it doesn't scream fresh, new. Wow, it's like a new Chanel. It kind of screams like leftovers, dusty, 70s, kind of what we didn't end up doing in the 70s. We're bringing it out now because we got nothing better to do. We didn't get any better ideas. And when you're bringing back a style, when you're bringing back a whole vibe, a whole mood, a whole catwalk, 80s style, like that's a lot. Like the expectance is high. I expect a lot. If you're announcing to me that you're bringing back catwalks from the 80s and 90s, I expect a dream, okay? This is watered down, just like their perfumes are becoming watered down, as time progresses, as raw materials are missing, prices keep going up, but the quality of the perfume, not just Chanel, all of the brands, they just keep watering them down. And it feels like, okay, great, let's redo the 80s, but watered down. What is this? It's depressing. It's literally depressing. Sure, listen, don't get me wrong, you guys. Sure, you're gonna find single pieces here and there, a jacket here, a skirt there. You could find 4 or 5 pieces that are like, yeah, cool, great. But do you need them? No. These are not must-haves. I'd rather, for like the fraction of the price, hunt down the vintage pieces. Sorry, Virginie, this ain't it, girl. I know you, I don't know. It feels to me like she's in some midlife crisis, or she's depressed or something. She's going through something. She must be going through something, because this is just like, oh yeah, kissing the camera. Yeah, you're really showing us. No, none of these models delivered any. Look at them. They're all like, you know, and that's it. Depressing. Because if the 80s were like that, we would not have such fond memories of them. If that was the 80s back then, when the 80s were the 80s and the 90s were the early 90s were the early 90s, they would have never gotten into history to begin with. If Carl did this in the 80s and 90s, it wouldn't be it. It just wouldn't be it, you guys. Let me know listen. And you know what? And then people come for me because, you know, I make videos on fashion, luxury. What do you like to watch? You like to watch Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes. I'm fine talking about them. I have my little Hermes crop. Somebody came for me the other day. I made an Hermes video. Oh, Dacob, you always make these Hermes videos because you want to make the coin. I'm like, girl, you keep clicking and watching. I'm going to be talking about Hermes as long as all of y'all fruit flies keep watching. So come flock on to me and watch it. But don't come for me telling me that I'm biased when it comes to Chanel. I criticize it when I think something is wrong. When there's something done that I don't like, I'm going to say it. Because you know, in the Fashion Bunker, we keep it real. So quit coming for me for making videos about this and that. I'll make videos whatever I want to. And I answered to that, Oompa Loompa, and I said, why don't you make your own YouTube channel and start commenting and making commentary videos about me? It'll last long, boo. So, Cody, how's it going, sweetie? I would agree. I like the idea of the throwback to the catwalk, but it felt underwhelming and cheap. Yeah, it's exactly how it felt to me, too. The 80s, I remember, were much more colorful, says Mrs. Blue, and full of love and life. Mimi Bell says, oh no, not breakdown. If Carl did that in the 80s, Chanel wouldn't have survived into the 90s. It just wouldn't, obviously. Because there's no life essence force in this show. It's stagnant. They could have made it much more colorful, though, since it's spring, summer. I agree. It looks like fall. Julie Scott says, I loved 80s fashion. This ain't them. Right, Julie? I agree. Darla Villani, how's it going, sweetie? Uninspired, musty thrift store vibes gives me the sads. Plus, completely tone deaf. Completely agree with you. Darla. Bim Black says, I'd rather go to Claudia's exhibition 1,000 times than buying anything from this collection. Claudia Schiffer, we love her. Kimberly says, those models needed Naomi to coach. Yeah, because, you know, all of it, these models, they've been told for years, don't show any emotions, don't show any emotions, don't show any character, don't, you know, so they all think, okay, well, to get a job, to get booked, they got to be the, you know, that kind of emotionless, just like, and now they're like, okay, give us character. Make it look like you're having fun. They're like, I haven't eaten in 3 weeks. I don't have the energy to give you fun on the catwalk because you and all of your model agencies have been telling me that I have to lose weight and that I should not be eating. So now, on top of me barely having the energy to walk on the runway, you want me to entertain the masses like a clown? How? With which energy? That is what I love about you. You definitely keep it real. Thank you, Rhonda. I do. And I'm sick and tired of people. Because you know how it is. People watch 1 second of a video, and then they think, they know you. They're going to read you down. They know. I'm like, girl, have you watched my videos? Do you know what I'm actually talking about? You don't? Then shut up. It's as easy as that. It's as easy as that. This is why I say fruit flies. Because the attention spans are of fruit flies. People commenting on a video after I've seen 5 seconds of it, the video is 20 minutes long. I'm like, so you know what I'm talking about, but you saw 5 seconds of a 20-minute video? Which brain cell, if you still have one activated in your brain, which brain cell would give you that logic that from 5 seconds you know what 20 minutes are all about? Which brain cell tells you that? What logic tells you that? How can you come to that conclusion? How? In what world? in your world, but your world, listen, ain't nobody want to be a part of that world. Trust you and me. And you don't even want to be a part of that world. Oh, somebody said something on television the other day. Fabulous. Says, I forgot it. Something like the most intelligent thing they did was being dumb. That's deep. Catherine Imhoff says, Virginie has missed the post lockdown attitude and spiritual needs on 2 collections now. Add that to the rerun of Chanel makeup collections. Depressing. Catherine, I completely agree with you. It is depressing. Very depressing. You know, she's good with haute couture. Haute couture is a weird world. And Chanel kind of, it's on and off, hit or miss. There are moments when she does great haute couture, but this pret-a-porter ain't it. Yes, Gwen, they needed more pep to their step. Kuroyoru. I feel like the girls' pretty faces were more interesting than the clothes. Sharon says the 80s models were superstars. Yes, they were. And they were paid like superstars. Leslie says, too much black for a spring show. Even the prints were outlined in black. Angela Q says, I don't know 80s fashion, but I love the accessories I saw. Gwen says, they have the look of being hungry. Yeah, come on, models, give us nothing. Right, Oxa? Give us nothing. Yeah, hangry models is only. Jesus says, they need some milk. Stacia, Stacia, wait, there you go. Stacia Rene. I mean, after watching Dior, at least the clothes were prettier. Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But it's like, it's not very hard. It's not it's the leap. It's not such a big leap. You know what I mean? Letty says, the whole collection and concept does not go with the current times. Angelica says, why Dacob have haters? Yeah, Dacob does. He does have haters. People be wild, man, says A1H. Samara Art says, to me, it looked like 3 different collections shuffled into one with no theme. Margarita Marinova, love you, Dacob. Hey, Margarita, love back to you. Pixel Hex says, fashion used to create and reveal relevance to the world. It doesn't work when a big house strives to be relevant to be fashionable. Good point. Jack says, the hair and makeup was the furthest thing from the 80s and 90s, except that one curly lady. She was amazing. Spot on regarding the hair, Jack, says Silala. I hated it all, says Jack. I hated it all. Marbariza says, don't blame the models. Blame the stylists and the hair. Julie says, somebody in my Chanel group commented, you have a tendency to be spicy. If spicy means keeping it real and being objective, then I'm here for it. Love your unbiased review, says Julie Song. Thank you so much. I'll take spicy any day. I love a good spicy meal. I'm fine. If they want to call me spicy, they can call. Listen, they can call me whatever they want to call me, as long as they keep calling, boo. As long as they keep calling and watching, let them. Just saying. And also, you know what? Just let me say again, subscribe to my channel, thumb up this video if you've enjoyed it. Thank you to all my members and patrons who have pledged. You guys, you can also join, push the join button next to the subscription button, become a member today, or a patron. Join me on Patreon, superdacob all spelled together, and have your name running at the end of every video as a co-producer of the Fashion Bunker in the roll credits at the end of every video, just like in every good Hollywood movie. Hold on, this lamp is irritating me. Okay, now it's higher. I wish they did. I wish they didn't keep dressing that OnePlus model in a sack, says Audrey. It's like they don't know how to make her sexy. So disappointing. That is so true, Audrey. She's such a beautiful girl, beautiful bone structure, beautiful curvaceous body, and they never know how to dress her. Never. Not one single time did they dress her, and she's been in every fashion show since she's popular, you know. She's the token model, the plus size, which, by the way, she's not even plus size. She's normal size. But for, you know, fashion world standards, they're like, oh, she's plus size. We're doing her a favor. Like, she must be so thankful to be part of these shows. Anyway, so she's the token, and they don't know how to dress her because Chanel does not know how, because they don't know. Their whole teams, they always work for these size zeros or size -3. And then, you know, now a normal woman is there finally, and they're like, oh, yeah, we've kind of forgotten how to tailor stuff for normal looking people. Super sad, super sad. Anyway, So, final thoughts, I'ma tell ya, the sunglasses, just because I love collecting Chanel sunglasses, they're far from being the best Chanel glasses I've ever seen. But the thick temples, it's kind of, you know, and maybe the first look, the black bag, not the tote she's wearing here, but the other, she's wearing two bags. The other bag, that's it for me. I've seen way better costume jewelry from Chanel in the past. This ain't it. And she's in the Armani show and looks so much better, says KDF. Yeah, she's in every show because now she's so popular. You know, Debbie says it shouldn't be hard to make her look fabulous and steal the show. It will be super easy, actually. Jesus says, I only like the new black leather tote and the 80s inspired black gold section of the collection. Everything else screams Virginie is retiring soon, along with the entire house of Chanel. Wow, Jesus is like, Angela Kisses, I love Chanel sunglasses too. Press those like buttons, folks. Thank you so much, Chrissy, for liking the video. And thank you guys too. So thumb up this video and tune in soon for a follow-up because, well, speaking of Chanel, you know, it's not all bad, really. Hold on. Let's leave it at a cliffhanger. There's an unboxing coming. Stay tuned. Until next time, never forget to never give up on love. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Bye.